Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Klötzli Knives Folding Swiss Border Guard. Very interesting piece that I've actually kind of had my eye on for a little while, but only recently got a chance to check out. And actually, that is thank you very much to my buddy over at Geezer's Edge. He's a gem of a human being. I met him at Blade Show, and we've talked a bunch, before online. But anyways, he sent this guy along for me to check out, and that was great. It's kind of an unusual knife. It's kind of an expensive one, and it was one I've been wanting to check out, so it's nice to have that chance. Next thing, let's do a little bit of a size comparison. This is a big freaking knife right here. I mean, maybe not by some standards, but it certainly is by mine. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica Ontario Rat number 2. And as I use my PM2 to pull up my review table surface and just cause trouble, here it is against the Spyderco PM2. And so what we can see here is that this is absolutely large. It's in fact a little bit longer than the PM2 in both dimensions, and in terms of sharpened blade length, around analogous to the PM2, but still, it's kind of a big one. That's 100%. Next thing, this guy is a design by Dietmar Pohl. Pohl Design, very interesting designer and person who I don't know that I've seen any of his stuff on the channel before, but he's definitely well known in the knife world. And then finally, this is a Klötzli knife. Right here. I believe it's Klötzli. I don't speak Swiss German. Sorry about that. But regardless, they are a company who I featured once before on the channel with the ACC01 knife that was very, very good. But this guy is doing some things differently that I very much appreciate. But they are a little Swiss company. They're based out of Bern, Switzerland. And that's why this is the folding Swiss border guard knife. Because I guess they give them the border guards. So, there you go. Alrighty, so let's go on ahead and jump on into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting little knife right here. So on the good side, to start with, it is a relatively simple knife. I mean, at some level, the construction is straightforward. You've got a stop pin here, backspacer, got a button lock assembly, pivot, blade, clip. There you go. You're done. It is just a piece of, 2 pieces of titanium, a button lock, and the rest of it. That's all. Yet, at the same time, it's relatively robust. There is, no real concern about any element of this knife. This feels like a very reasonable tool for, well, most uses. I have absolutely no concern about that, and so I am always a big fan of something that is relatively simple, because there are fewer ways for it to fail, and that's a beautiful thing. So, that's a good thing. Next thing, this has a solid clip. As you can see here, the clip is just a bent sort of springy clip, but it is reasonably well done. I will also say, in some ways, this is one of the more attractive clip billboardings I've seen, in that it is relatively subtle. You can't really tell what it is from much of a distance there. It is well done. If you're gonna clip billboard, which I still probably would prefer not to have happen, it's better that it happens like this in a classy, nice-looking way. So that's a good thing. But at the very least, the clip works well, and it keeps the knife in the pocket pretty well. And actually, speaking of in the pocket, the knife carries quite well too, because the way it's designed is it will hang off to the side like this, such that this guy kind of tucks into the back side of your pocket there. And so as a result, there's nothing sticking out at the edge here. The edge of the blade is nowhere close here. There's no flipper tab. There's really no nothing. This guy carries actually a lot better than you might expect as a result. Even though it is a big knife, it doesn't carry like a particularly big knife. In the days I had this in the pocket, there were really no concerns about that. And so that is pretty good. Next thing, I do like this handle engraving a fair bit here. I mean, look, it's a subtle thing. And, I don't know if this is the official thing of the Swiss border guard or what, but you know what? It looks good. It looks very attractive. It just makes the whole Swissitude of the whole thing jump up, because, I mean, Swiss. Oh, yeah, Swiss. This is definitely, it's a classy looking engraving, and it's well enough done that I got no complaints there. Next thing, blade on this guy. Of course, the important part of a knife is the blade, and this is a fine little blade here. It is N690 steel, which is a steel that I'm fine with. It works well. It's fine for everyday carry. It's got a relatively thin edge on it. It's not like, oh my God, the sliciest thing ever, but for N690, there's a pretty good edge right here. It's got a nice hollow grind to it. That is something that I did not appreciate from the pictures, and I'll see if I can kind of show it off here, but this is a very hollow grind there, which I do appreciate, and looks pretty good too. It has a beautiful swedge along the top of it here. I mean, a little bit of a harpoon, but it's not harpoony in that sort of obnoxious way that some of them can be. This is just a good blade, and overall, every time that I've used it for something, it's worked like a freaking charm. I got zero complaints at all about this blade here. And so it is a very nice blade. Then finally, on the good side, it's a nicely finished knife overall. It's very easy, especially for these kinds of things, to leave details missing. For instance, they have sharp edges on the inside of the titanium here, but honestly, there is really nothing about this knife that I would say is missing, that I'd say is deficient in any way. This is a very, very nice little piece. All parts of it are good. It's good to freaking go. And so I appreciate that very much. It's nicely polished, nicely rounded scale edges, just nice scales in general. Even the finishing on the scales is good. This is a well-made knife. I can't really argue whatsoever with any element of its construction. So to me, at least, all of that is the good, is that it's nicely finished. It's got a nice blade, nice handle engraving, solid clip, and simple construction. To me, what's great, though, about this guy is the action. This guy has a beautiful button lock action. And it's beautiful, and some of you may be thinking, well, Nick, come on, that's not that impressive. I've seen other knives drop shut faster. Yeah, but the difference is those knives are usually on bearings. But this knife is on phosphor bronze washers, which are a beautiful thing. Not only do they add a little bit of robustness relative to bearings, which are easier to kind of gunk up, as well as, you know, they're supporting the blade on individual points where the bearings are, rather than a nice flat-on-flat sort of support. But this is just super smooth, and it opens beautifully, either with the thumb stud there, which is hard to do. There we go. Give it a little bit of wrist there. Short thumbs, what can I say? Or you can also just use the button lock, and I'll try and do this on the camera. Yeah, you can just use the button lock, press down on the button lock, and then fling the knife open that way. One thing I want to be very clear about is that this is not an automatic knife. A lot of people see button lock and assume automatic. The thing is, if I press this button and don't do anything, absolutely nothing happens. And in fact, that you can see here that it is manual through all elements of its domain. This is not an assisted knife and not an automatic knife. This is just a manual button lock folder. But nevertheless, the action on it is beautiful. And after smoothing it out a little bit, I used in this case knife pivot lube, and getting some of that factory grease out, this is just amazingly smooth. This is a beautifully, beautifully done knife. In terms of that action, this is great. And honestly, I wish this action were, I wish the ACC01 had an action this smooth. I would have been over the freaking moon with that knife. Anyways, I digress. So I'm loving the fact that this is on phosphor bronze, and I'm loving the fact that it has an action that is so damn nice as this one. This is just spectacular. So that to me is what's great. On the bad side, okay, this is the part where you scream bias or something like that. But the thing is, personally for me, the steel here, N690, is not my favorite. You know, it doesn't super impress me in its performance. Now, I know what a lot of you think. Nick, N690 is good to go. South Africa's been using it on high-end pieces for... Yeah, I know all that. It's in practice, it's a steel that's similar to like 440C, VG10, that kind of thing. It is absolutely good to go for everyday carry. I mean, lots of people will be just fine with N690. And this is my own bias. This is my own steel snobbery in many ways. And it also sharpens very easily, which is another nice thing to be said about it. But honestly, for me, some of the characteristics of the edge, I don't know, it's less and less interesting as you go up the price point. If this were a $100 knife, a $200 knife, I probably wouldn't say anything. But as we're creeping up there, $300, actually about $380 is the highest I saw this guy listed for on the web. N690 is getting to be less and less of an impressive choice. It works fine, but as you push the price point up, fine isn't quite good enough. But that's my own snobbery. You're more than welcome to dismiss that particular point. Speaking of bias, hey, this is big. Look, for me at least, bigger knives tend to be, well, a little bit less attractive. This guy comes in with a blade length around 3.75 inches. That's going to be illegal in a lot of places, which is, well, something to consider. And it's also just, frankly, big. It's a little bit, I won't say it's unwieldy. It's beautifully balanced and things like that, but it's just, it's big. So keep that in mind. You're going to need to want a really big knife if you're picking this guy up. Next thing, this guy came with a lanyard, which is right here. But it is sort of a permanent lanyard, if that makes sense. What I mean by that is that this is crimped into this titanium piece. I'm very lucky in that the person who loaned me the knife was more than happy to have me just cut off the lanyard, because that made it a lot easier to carry for review, because lanyards drive me completely freaking nuts. But this guy having the titanium permanent lanyard on there, I would much rather them have something where you can remove it non-destructively, right? Because for a lot of people, the lanyard might be an important part of it, but if I'm not going to resell it because I don't freaking own it, but but still, it would be nice to have something I can add and remove as desired without destroying it. Next thing, ergonomics on this guy. So the ergos I'm actually really torn on, because in this position right here, which I think is really where it's meant to be used, with the finger choked up here in this choil, with the thumb down here in this area, ergonomically right here, it's amazing. This is really well done ergonomically, and the balance in this position is right on. So at some level, ergonomically, it's great right here, but if you choke back, then suddenly everything kind of goes to heck, because now my fingers no longer align, and so these finger grooves or spikes or whatever you want to call them are digging right into there. The tip of the clip is starting to dig in. Basically, this works great in this one position, but the moment you go outside of that, you end up with a bunch of hot spots jumping in there, and the balance starts to feel off. So in the way I think it's meant to be held, it works great, but you need to understand that that's really the only way that this, at least for my hands, is going to feel great. This is always the danger when you add in finger grooves like this, is that sometimes they'll work amazing, and sometimes not so much. And so I'm always a little bit reluctant when I see those kinds of grooves put in place, because they're kind of assuming a set of hands. And so the ergos are okay. They're great in one position, but okay otherwise. Then finally, on the bad side, the price on this guy, although very variable, is a little bit on the high side. Looking around for this review, I saw actually a bunch of different listings, a bunch. This is actually a knife that's not sold by, Klötzli isn't carried by as many American knife dealers, but I was seeing, prices in the range from $300 up to $380 US. I think $345 was about average. Now, look, that's not a bad price, particularly. I'm not looking at that and going, oh, my God, you're ripping my face off. No, not whatsoever. I mean, I think those work, but it's starting to get a little bit on the higher side, and that's getting into the price range where, for instance, N690, not quite such what I'm after there. Again, if you love sharpening, then you're absolutely going to love N690, but for the most part, the price on this guy I'd like to see a little bit high. Or, I'm sorry, I'd like to see a little bit lower. I feel like the price might be a little bit high. So to me, that's the baddest. Price a little high. The ergonomics are great in one position, not so good any other position. It has a lanyard that needs to be cut off to be removed. It has a bit big. It's a bit big, generally. An N690 is a steel that is good to go for everyday carry, but is not my personal choice, but then again, bias. On the ugly front, okay. Check this out. This is how this knife carries. The pocket clip carries, and you have this much of this knife sticking up out of your pocket there. That is a substantially shallow carry. This is another case of the lanyard lobbyists winning, because clearly they have favored the position of this lanyard hole over the position of the clip. They are willing to have the knife sticking way out in order to have this lanyard hole. And in addition, they didn't do a deep carry style clip, a fold-over clip. Do I have a deep carry clip on around here someplace? Probably do. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Ruwaiki to the rescue. This is a fold-over style clip where the screws are actually underneath the clip there. And had they done that there, this would have carried a little bit deeper. But as it stands, unfortunately, you have what appears to be a proprietary screw clip layout there. Now, the screws themselves are not proprietary, but the layout for them is. It's not like you can do that. You can just swap another clip in from another knife or something like that. But as a result, this ends up with a very, very shallow carry. This is sticking way out of your pocket. I can see that as being a pro for some people, especially if you're using a lanyard, you want to pull this guy out quickly, you've got, a bunch of strings sticking off the back of your knife for some damn reason, bias. But anyways, this is definitely sticking way out of the pocket, and I'm not a big fan of that. I would definitely prefer that they either put the clip next to the lanyard or just skip the, I don't know, whatever. But I'm really not a fan of the shallow carry here. So, to me at least, that's what's ugly, is that it is a ridiculously shallow carry, and I have trouble flipping it underneath a camera, but that's on me, not on this guy. In everyday life, no problem popping this guy out. So, final conclusion. This is actually a good knife. I mean, actually, whoa, what a shock. No, I mean, at some level, I wasn't sure about this guy, but this is a good knife. It's relatively simple. It's very well done, well built. It's got a nice blade and a very magnificent action. Sure, it's big. The steel is okay. It's okay in the hand. Well, it's great in the hand in one position, terrible in others, so it averages out to okay. It is pricey. Yeah, the price is high, but honestly, it's not as high as the amount it carries in the pocket. High carry? No? Okay, that wasn't funny. I'll try again later. But anyways, yeah, the price is up there, and it carries very, very shallow. In practice, though, this actually turned out to be a knife that I appreciate a fair amount. I'm always game for something that is relatively simple and done well. And particularly when it's done this well, with a smooth action like this guy, I do find myself impressed. This is a knife that, I'm not necessarily 100% sure who I will recommend this to, but if somebody says I want a manual button lock and I don't mind big, this is a knife I might send them to. It's a pretty solid choice. I find myself pretty impressed overall. Is this a knife I want? No. It's just not for me. The size isn't quite for me. It's a little too big, and I have too many knives, etc. But at the same time, I think this is a pretty compelling choice. And if you're looking to experience a very nice button lock with a very smooth action, you like the steel and you don't mind the price, then I think the Swiss Border Guard here, much like the symbol on its handle, is going to be a huge plus. Huh? I don't think you'll be neutral on it. Frankly, you'll love it. You won't feel burned. Okay, sorry, enough with the cheesy jokes. I hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. And if I keep up these jokes, you'll go from board to border. Oh, my God. Okay, I'm done. Bye now.